Now, last night, I gave you my thinking regarding 2025, ending the year at between 700 and $1,000 a share. And at the end of 2026, we would approach $2,000 a share, possibly getting to $2,000 a share. Now, in order for us to get to $2,000 a share by the end of 2026, then we have to know something about 27 and 28 so that you can figure out what the company is worth in terms of predicting the future. In fact, if you do it right, you should go many more years out than that. As Kathy Wood has taught us over and over again, she thinks in terms of 5 years, but some of the other companies that are the analysts that we follow go out 10 years or even 20. I think having run a manufacturing business, I think that's ludicrous because I don't think that numbers beyond 5 years are even reasonably available to us because there's just so many things that can change as we've seen, you know, over the last 20 years, it's become particularly obvious how quickly entire industries can be disrupted, companies can be basically out of business overnight that were very, very strong. So I'm going to be looking at this in terms of, 3 years out. We're still in 2025. I'm going to look at 2027 and 2028 this morning, actually. And, let me know what you think about what I came up with here. So Elon Musk has described 2027 as going to be the year of ludicrous. But in order to talk about the stock price in 2027, we have to imagine what 2028 will look like. So we're going to kind of look at that whole period. Now, I'm going to be super conservative on this. I mean, for me, but I do think we will have. I'm only going to look at the factories that we currently have. I'm not going to look at any new factories because none have been announced. I'm not. I believe that there will be a solar factory by then. I think they will probably add some more mega pack or mega block factories by then. I mean, there's all kinds of things I think that are going to happen. I think there will be new products that we don't even know are even on the list yet, even though I've mentioned them, like drones or other autonomous vehicles. But until they're announced, I'm not going to talk about them in this particular context, just what we know that we have. Now, as you know, by 2027, I think Tesla will no longer be selling any, or at least very many cars to consumers for just putzing around town. Okay. I mean, it's just not going to be a thing. Tesla will either put the cars into their own fleet, and that'll be most of the cyber cabs and some of the other vehicles will go into their own fleet, or they will sell them to other fleets. And there will be lots of individuals and small companies and big companies that will be buying up all the Tesla cars that are made in order to put them into fleets. But here's a key aspect of the thinking that I don't think anybody but me has mentioned. I'm almost 100% certain that Elon has never said this, and I don't think I've seen anybody else saying this. Robotaxis are only going to last 3 or 4 years. I mean, they're going to build these cars. They're going to be good for maybe 250 to 300,000 miles. Does anybody think it's going to be longer than that? Yeah, some of them. There might be some that'll eke out 400,000 or 500,000 miles, but some of them will have a real problem by 250,000 to where they need to be retired. So I'm going to assume that robotaxis are only going to last 3 to 4 years. So therefore, in order to get to 60,000 miles of revenue per year, which is the kind of the number everybody talks about, to get to 60,000 miles of revenue, you have to actually put 100,000 miles on the car. So in 3 to 4 years, you're going to be putting 300,000, 400,000 miles. So I think Tesla will get very good at getting 300,000 miles out of a car, especially the cyber cabs. And I think they will also recycle about, 60, 70, 80% of those cars at the end. The batteries and many of the other parts will be able to be recycled. But I don't think the average road taxi is going to last more than 300,000 miles. Therefore, if you have 3 million cars in the fleet at the end of 2027, which I think is reasonable, 1 million by the end of 2026 and 3 million by the end of 2027, and you make 5 million cars in 2028, That's what I'm thinking will probably happen with existing facilities. Okay, I think we can make 3 million, 2 to 3 million of others of sexy cars, and then 2 to 3 million of the cybercabs, but it'll be a total mix of about 5 million in existing facilities. That'll get you to a fleet of 8 million. Then if you do it again the next year, you're up to 13 million. And then finally in 2030, I think that would make it, you're up to your 15 million vehicles. And if you're only making 5 million a year, that means you're just replacing from then on, if you don't increase your total production. Okay, you with me now? Once you get to 15 million cars in the fleet and they are only lasting 3 years, then that, and you're only making 5 million cars, then you're basically churning your fleet every 3 years and you're not increasing your fleet. Your maximum is 15 million. Now, if you can make 6 million cars, now you can have 18 million cars in the fleet, etc. So this is all, everything I'm doing this is based on the idea that as of 2028, they will be making 5 million cars a year. Tesla will be making 5 million cars a year, and that they will have something on this order in terms of the number in the fleet. So I'm figuring a fleet of 8 million in 2028. Okay, you with me? Still with me? 8 million cars in 2028, at the end of 2028, and an average profit of $20,000 per year. At $20,000 a year, you realize that $20,000 a year is not very much, but it's going to get worse. Okay, so yes, right. Okay, right now Tesla makes about $6,000 or $7,000 when they make a car. Then they can make another $6,000 or $7,000 if they sell FSD. So that's a good deal. So you make a car, you sell it, and you make 14,000. That would be a very, very good deal. But it would be a better deal to make $20,000 a year off that same car, right? And the reality is it's such a good deal that it will come down because of competition, because of just the law of large numbers, and et cetera. You're eventually going to see that number come down. This has been the big conversation about NVIDIA is, wow, they can't keep making 70% because at some point it's just not going to work. One way or the other, competition, other people making their own units are just competing with themselves. The price is going to come down and the margins are going to come down. Well, same thing for Tesla. And Elon has talked about the fact that eventually these cars are going to be all in 20 cents a mile cost to run them. That's everything. That's depreciation, insurance, everything is 20 cents a mile, and that they will be retailing at 30 cents a mile. All right, so that's 10 cents a mile times 60,000 miles. That's only $6,000 a year. So when I say $20,000 a year, I think that is an interim number, and it'll slowly go down, but it'll go down as the total units go up. So they'll make actually more money than 2028, but it's going to get harder and harder because the margins are going to go down. So with a fleet of 8 million in 2028 and an average profit of $20,000 a year, that only gives you $160 billion in profit. I believe that is the most profit that that would be the most profit that any company has made on a regular basis. I think we talked about this on the show the other day, and that Saudi Aramco had 1 year when they made over 200 billion. I think Apple and others are getting up into the $150 billion range now. So, but this would be one product line, just Robotaxi, 2028, $160 billion in profit. That's about $50 per share. If you put a multiple of 50 on it, that is a $2,500 stock price just for Robotaxi. So move those numbers around any way you want to, but by the end of 2027, we should be looking at being able to project that 2028 number. And so the stock price for just Robotaxi should be around 2,500. Give discount it some if you want, make it 2,200 just for Robotaxi by the end of 2027. Now, I do think that the profit per car will drop, as I mentioned, as we get to 2029. And so they'll have to increase the number of cars, as I mentioned. So we get down to $6,000 per car of profit. Now you need a fleet of, let's say, 30 million. And in order to have a fleet of 30 million, you've got to be making 10 million cars a year. And then, so if you've got a fleet of 30 million times $6,000 a car, you've got $270 billion in profit, which would be a lot more than what I say a minute ago, 150 billion. All right, so that's kind of how things are going to keep on moving up over these next years. But I believe that Elon has thought this through carefully, and he says eventually 20 cents all-in cost per mile and 30 cents the average sell price per mile. All right, so we have $2,500 a share at the end of 2027 based on the expected profits just on Robotaxi of 160 billion in 2028. Well, what about Optimus? Well, in that the ramp for 2026 will now start in Q1. We won't be starting the ramp in the last quarter of 2025, but we'll start the ramp in the first quarter of 2026, and they have actually got the third version, going to be done by the end of this year and ready to go. I'm thinking they'll still get 50,000 of these out in 2026. I don't know if that's 100% true. Maybe it'll be 30,000, and maybe it'll be 100,000 because it's going to take up a lot less space, and I think it'll be a lot less complicated to build than a car. But if we use Elon's talking points about, ramping at the rate of 10x per year, that would mean 500,000 in 2027 and 5 million in 2028. So 50,000, then 500,000, then 5 million. Let's cut that final number in half to 2.5 million in 2028. Now, Elon says that when we get to 1 million units, they will cost $20,000 to build, and he and others have suggested that they will retail for $30,000 each. So this will be a $10,000 profit on 2.5 million units. That would only be 25 billion. So, it's like small change compared to the 150 billion for Robotaxi. Well, that's the worst case analysis. And if this were the case, I'd expect 5 times that in 2029. So in other words, we would increase not 10 times, but 5 times. And now we would be making 125 billion in 2029, and then maybe another 5 times that, or 625 billion in 2030. So you see, it becomes a very, very big number. Now, alternatively, if the bots are leased, and I think that is going to be a very good idea, and they're going to be leased with a profit of at least $10,000 a year. And I'm talking about after 2028. I think initially the leases will be much higher, but let's say in 2028 they're $10,000 a year of profit per product. Then we would get 3 million in use by 2028 at 10,000 each would be a $30 billion profit. And then in 2029, 100 billion. And you can see eventually it's going to be really big numbers. And then you're also going to get into the situation where I believe these will be replaced, but I think they're only going to be replaced about every 5 years. So if you're making 100 billion of them a year, you're only going to get 500 billion in use at any given time. So if you have 500 billion in use at any given time, 500 billion times 10,000, yeah, it's $5 trillion in profits. So let's take that. Let's divide that. Let's divide that by 5. We're going to say $1 trillion in profit. Of course, it could be 5 trillion. So $1 trillion in profit if sold, and 5 trillion if rented, and it might be somewhere in between. And 1 trillion in profit is about $300 a share. 50 times multiple would be $15,000 per share. So now you begin to see why megapacks and semi-trucks that could throw off $100 billion each in profits by the end of this decade, that'd be nice, but it'll not be a big deal compared to $1 trillion of profit on Optimus. I'm loving to hear your comments. I know these numbers sound crazy, but Elon has told us. I mean, again, every single thing that I just told you was actually less than what Elon Musk has talked about. It's less than what Cathie Wood has talked about in terms of robotaxis, less than what Elon Musk has talked about in terms of Optimus. So remember, Elon has said the corporate net worth, the corporate worth, the market cap for Tesla on Optimus alone would be $25 trillion. And at a 50 PE, that would mean $5 trillion in profit. Would it be 5 trillion? Or is that 500 billion? 500 billion times 50, 2.5, 25. Yeah. It would be 5 trillion in profit. All right. So Elon Musk says these things, $25 trillion in market cap. Cathie Wood, $7.5 trillion in market cap for Robotaxi. And then you've got another few billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap for all the rest, all the other things, except some of those other things might turn out to be as big, because as mentioned in previous iterations of this program, I've talked to you about the possibility for solar, but I've also talked about the possibility just for energy distribution and sales. Might be bigger than Optimus. Anyway, one of the things about all this is that it shows that Elon Musk is bold, or as I put it the other day, he has a lot of audacity. So we talked yesterday about curiosity. Today, I want to talk to you about audacity. And then tonight, we're going to talk about tenacity. Audacity and tenacity are two different things. So does Elon Musk feel audacious? Did he feel audacious when he flew to Russia to try to purchase a rocket so that he can send the rocket to Mars so that he could do a publicity stunt? Did he feel audacious when he did that? Well, he had $180 billion in the bank, so maybe it was 160 or 180. I think it was 160 million dollars in the bank at the time. So maybe it didn't feel that crazy to do that. Now, or how about right after that, when he put 100 million, he had 160 million, he put 100 million into SpaceX and 60 million into Tesla, the entire amount basically into those two companies. Did he feel audacious starting a car company and starting a rocket company? Well, let's get it from his own ears. His own ears. I'm all right. Wake up, Randy. Let's get it from his own lips. First of all, he says, look, take risks now and do something bold. You won't regret it. Boy, if there's an old saying about, do you take advice from somebody who doesn't live their own stuff? Well, nobody has been a bigger risk taker. Nobody has been bolder than Elon Musk. Put in the comments below if you can think of anybody in history that's been taken bigger risks or been more bold in terms of the audacity of the mission than Elon. Wanting to go to Mars as a private citizen or a private company, starting an electric car company from scratch. And those are, I don't think he's taken any classes or gone to any universities to learn how to do brain surgery. And yet he's not only doing rocket science, he's also doing brain surgery. I mean, I don't know. Maybe other people have been bolder than that. It's possible. Okay, well, here's another quote. On a personal level, it's one thing if you've got, a mortgage to pay and a family to support. And if you have to delegate from your job, then you'll have to go and feed your family and pay the rent. Okay, that's understandable. But let's say you're young and you're just coming out of college or coming out of high school. What do you risk? Just risk it. Take a shot. That's what he did. Obviously, he did. It paid off really big. But then he went further. He had some kids and he had a wife and he took bigger shots, and now he's taking even bigger shots. But those shots are paying off. And now, of course, he is maybe worth $500 billion, the most of any human on Earth at this point by a lot. And maybe only superseded by Solomon. I don't know. It'll be hard. We have to figure out what all those horses and all of those castles were worth. Anyway, quote, it's not enough. I'm sorry, it's not as though I had the absence of fear. I feel fear quite strongly, but there are times when something is important enough. You believe in it enough that you just do it in spite of the fear. It's normal to feel fear. There'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear. So we have to know that going into these deals, all of these ventures, there is some trepidation, there's some nervousness, there's some likelihood of failure, there's a potential that it's not going to work out, and that's okay. But it has to be important enough, so there's a weighing factor that goes in. Is the goal important enough to take the risk? If you got a family, is the risks go down? You're not willing to take as many risks. I've said it on this channel many times before. I've taken some risks over the last 7 years, 8 years, 9 years in my 70s, but nothing like the risks I took in my 60s, nothing like the risks I took in my 30s, because in your 70s, you're starting to say, hey, I can't really start over yet again. Oh yeah, I did start over at 74 with this channel, but you can't really start over when you're 80. Well, maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see what I do at 80. But the reality is that you can't count on the fact that you can start over. Your health is not going to be what it was. Your stamina is not going to be what it was. Your ability to even borrow money, because people are like, hey man, you can't, I'm not going to loan you money. How are you ever going to pay it back? All right, now, quote, we should not be afraid of doing something just because of some amount of failure is likely to occur. If our forefathers had taken this approach, the United States would not exist. Quote, when starting out at Tesla and SpaceX, in both cases, I thought the odds of success were less than 50%. I've heard him quoted other times saying he thought the odds of success were 10%. So it's not as though I was convinced that it will all work. I thought, well, probably it won't work, but it's worth a try because the outcome is important. He also said that starting a car company is idiotic and starting an electric car company is idiocy squared. He says also, I had one of the most difficult choices I've ever been faced with in 2008. I think maybe I had $30 million, $40 million left in all my accounts. I had two choices. I could put all the $30 million, I could put all of it into one company, or I could put all of it into the other company. I could put all of it into Tesla, all of it into SpaceX. I could save one and let the other potentially fail completely. But if I split it between the two companies, they might both die. But he did that. So he split it between the companies, and the rest is history. So he says, because when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, it's like a child. And so it's like, am I going to let one of them starve to death? I couldn't bring myself to do it. I split the money between the two, which really, thank goodness, it worked out. This is Audacity. Okay, I got 30 to 40 million left. So we take the 30 to 40 million. I'm going to put it in my two companies. Maybe both of them will fail. Maybe both of them will be successful. In the meantime, I'm paying rent to somebody. I'm couch surfing. I'm worth I don't know at that point, what was he probably worth? It'd be hard to, I have to go back and look, but maybe $1 billion or more, but he's got no money, no cash. He says, look, the odds of me coming into the rocket business, not knowing anything about rockets, not having ever built anything, I mean, I would have to be insane. I thought the odds were in my favor. Why I even began when something important enough to do, you just do it. It's okay to have all your eggs in one basket, he says, as long as you control what happens to the basket. So there you have it, folks. There's the quote. There's the reason why he wants 22 to 25% of Tesla, like he has, I think, 47% of SpaceX and maybe over 50% of XAI. So you see, he wants to have the control because he's not interested in having somebody else come in that doesn't know what they're doing, messing things up. He also said, I could either watch it happen or I could be a part of it. So now he's talking about way back when he's looking at what was happening with regard to the environment, what was happening with regard to the procurement, the ability, the sustainability of the planet. And he says, look, I've looked at these things. I want to leave the planet better than I found it. I want to be able to do something useful, beneficial, with purpose. And so he says, look, I could either watch other people try to make the planet sustainable. I could either watch other people try to clean up the environment, could either watch other people put us back into space and thereby gain greater potential for the human consciousness to continue even in a catastrophic event on Earth, or I could watch other people do all that, or I could do it. He says, hey, look, hey, let's have some fun here and let's have some adventure here. Let's just try some crazy stuff. And if it doesn't work, we'll stop it. And if it does work, we'll amplify it. But I think that's really fun and exciting. So if, none of this is advice to you, but maybe there's something more fun and more exciting that you could be doing. And maybe that would make your life more interesting and you'd feel more purposeful. Maybe you already do. Maybe you're doing the most exciting thing you can think of to do. Maybe you're being as audacious as you should be at your age or station in life, or with the kind of money that you have available to do it. But maybe there's a chance that you can do something even more fun and more audacious. He says, look, the first step is establishing that something is possible. Then maybe it'll occur. All right, listen, we're going to talk about tenacity tonight. We're going to go from audacity to tenacity. Last night, if you didn't watch the program on curiosity, well, first of all, last night we did the program where I really detailed out how we're going to get to 2,000 by the end of 2026 and 700 to 1,000 by the end of this year. So if you'd like to see that and what Elon Musk has to say about his being curious and why curiosity is so critical to who he is and to why he has become who he is, and with all of his successes, if you'd like to see both of those, the card will be right there. This is your audacious, what am I, host? Your audacious guy here talking about Elon Musk's audacity and why that's important to you to know as someone who invests in Tesla. And tonight, we'll have both. Well, first of all, we'll have the regular Sunday night program where we talk about all the things that are happening in the coming week and how that's going to impact things, along with any Tesla news today. And then tonight, after that, we will have a program where we're going to be talking about tenacity, Elon Musk's tenacity. Because let's face it, folks, he is he is somebody who never lets go. And we'll talk about what he has to say about that tenacity. That's all I've got for you right now. I'm hoping that you're enjoying this particular series on Elon Musk, as well as analyzing the future here with regard to the profits and the potential stock price. It's been great talking to you.